Please take me to the hospital. As I lay on the living room sofa with a high fever, my husband was busy preparing to leave. I don't think it's just a cold. Please take me to the hospital. I can't move on my own. My pleading voice did not stop my husband from moving. My husband is about to go on a trip to Hawaii with his cheating partner. It's impossible. If I take you there, we won't make it in time. We can't cancel the trip now either. He doesn't seem to care about my condition, just glancing at me. Perhaps he thinks he'll catch a cold, too. If you lie down for a while, you should be able to go by yourself by evening. I will be back after 5 days. Well, I'm out of time, so I'm going. Somewhere inside me, I may have hoped that my husband would cancel his trip if the situation was like this. Leaving me unable to move, the door was closed behind me. It was also the moment when the red thread that barely connected me and my husband was cut. In a hazy consciousness, I called someone. I woke up in a hospital bed after being transported by ambulance the next morning. When I realized it, my phone was full of calls from my husband. The calls started coming in about 2 hours after I was transported in an emergency. Oh, he did call me. As I stared blankly at the screen, my husband called again. Suddy. Please help me. Now, where do I start? At that moment, when the door closed, I had decided to erase all traces of my marriage to my husband from my heart. I smiled and spoke kindly to the scumbag on the other end of the phone. I am Suddy. I'm 29 years old. We've been married for 5 years, but we still don't have any children. There's a reason for that, but now I think it's a good thing we don't have any. My husband Jackson is 32, 3 years older than me. He was a senior at the part-time job I had during my student days. After graduation, we met again by chance at the station and started dating after eating out a few times. My husband was very kind to me, and after 2 years of dating, we got married. When we were talking about where to live before we got married, we were in my room. Isn't this place good enough? It's close to New York, the station is right there, and it's big enough for 2 people to live in until they have a child, right? Huh? Oh, yeah, I guess so. Even if we try to find a more convenient place than this, it'll be too expensive to rent. And your father will be more relieved, won't he? Certainly, my father would be pleased. This apartment is owned by my father and is a family property with a spacious layout. It's a 6-story building, with only the top 2 floors being 2 rooms for singles, and I rented one of them. The dining room is big enough to accommodate a 2-person table and a sofa, so I've been using it as a living room since I was alone. Although it's for singles, it was spacious enough for 2 people to live in. That's right. Let's decide what to do after we get married. Money, housework, children, and so on. There are a lot of things to consider, aren't there? Yeah, I was only thinking about the wedding and the new house. It's like making a pledge, isn't it? It sounds fun. A pledge? Then let's write it down later and sign it. That's a good idea. From there, we decided on the rules for the 2 of us after getting married. Let's put 2/3 of our income into our account. We'll use it for living expenses and save the rest. Housework is difficult because I come home late, but I'll definitely clean the bathroom every day. And I'll clean on weekends. Thinking about the marriage life that was about to begin was fun and never boring. However, there was only one thing that our opinions clashed on. Also, let's not cheat on each other. Of course. But what if we do? What if Suddy cheats? Well, depending on the reason, I might forgive her. What about Suddy? No, I can't. I can't forgive it. Even if you're sorry, I still can't trust you. After thinking for a while, my husband nodded alone. Never cheat. If cheating is discovered, follow the other person's opinion. How about that? Great. Let's do that. So we wrote down the rules of the couple, which were not official, and signed them. I was convinced that there were no unpleasant agreements between us and that we would definitely succeed. No, if nothing had changed at this time, we might still be living happily now. Life may be fun because you never know what will happen next. The situation changed 2 years ago when we talked about wanting children soon. My husband's company went bankrupt and he lost his job. His salary was decent, so he was looking for a job with similar conditions. I'm working too, so find a place where Jackson can work comfortably rather than the amount of salary. I encouraged him, but his male pride wouldn't allow it, and he insisted on the amount of salary. If we have a child and Suddy can't work, it'll be a problem. I can't do housework as well as Suddy, so I want to be able to support my family by myself at least. I was honestly moved by my husband's words. I think there was really love at that time. However, even after the unemployment benefits ended, my husband could not find a job. He managed to get some interviews, but he didn't get any job offers. About a year after he became unemployed, my husband consulted me. I decided to work part-time at a bar at night. I don't want to compromise on my job, but it's also a burden on Suddy if I don't have any income. Really? Is it okay to work at night? I'm thinking of getting a qualification that will help me with my work while I'm taking the qualification course. I don't have much to appeal to in interviews. Certainly, my husband had been doing route sales at his previous company, so he might not have had much to sell himself. But I'm going to take the course while I'm working part-time at the bar, so is $500 okay for the money I can put in the house during that time? Yeah, it's fine. I'll support you, so do your best. Thank you. I'll get my qualifications quickly and find a stable job. We talked about supporting each other as a couple and overcoming this trial. I had also talked to my parents, so my father secretly helped me. You don't need to pay rent until Jackson finds a job. But keep it a secret from Jackson. He might have some pride. I believed that everything would work out somehow because of this. When my husband started working part-time at a bar, our lives became completely out of sync. When I left home, my husband was sleeping, and when I came back, he was already at work. The only time we could meet face-to-face was on weekday nights when my husband was off and on Sundays. There are a lot of young people at the bar, and I feel like I'm getting energy from them. I'm taking the course, so I feel like I'm back in school too. I remember when we worked together. Please work hard and find a job. At first, my husband seemed to enjoy talking about his part-time job and qualification exams, but gradually he stopped talking. Even on holidays, he played games, looked at his phone, or slept. Perhaps because we met less often, the days when he didn't do the designated housework increased. Even after half a year has passed, he hasn't said anything about getting a qualification or finding a job. Even I, who am usually patient, was starting to get irritated with my husband. Hey, how's your studying going? Are you looking for a job? You haven't said anything since then, and you haven't been doing anything around the house lately either. I might have said it in a bad way, but my husband replied. I'm looking for a job, but I haven't found one yet. I failed the exam the other day, so I'm trying again. Why didn't you tell me that? You're so annoying. You should have figured it out when I stopped talking about it. I have pride too. I don't want to be thought of as incompetent or be told that I am. I couldn't say anything more because I knew how it felt when nothing went right. But I feel like there was a rift between us after that. Maybe it was because I was being considerate of my husband and stopped saying anything, but he really stopped doing anything around the house. Then my husband started to change. When he was at home, he always carried his phone with him and would go out if he got a call even on holidays. I've become friends with the people at work. He started dressing and styling his hair like young people these days and wearing accessories that he had never been interested in before. I don't know how much my husband is earning from his part-time job, but he seems to have so much money even though he's only giving me $500 for living expenses. Today, he's getting ready to go out wearing a shirt I've never seen before. Is he paying for his classes properly? What about job hunting? Studying? Even though I'm being considerate, I'm still accumulating dissatisfaction and anxiety. You have that kind of clothes? If you have the money, can't you increase our living expenses? I end up speaking harshly. I don't want to blame my husband, but I have emotions too. When I see him acting so selfishly, I feel like I'm about to explode. Are you making fun of me for not having a job? Changing my hairstyle, buying clothes, and showing off to the people at work? After raising his voice, my husband muttered in a small voice as if throwing it away. I have to do this, or my pride will be shattered. And then he left without looking back at me. I knew that things couldn't stay the way they were, but I couldn't do anything at that time. One day, there was a drinking party with colleagues from work. Since the bar where my husband worked was nearby, I decided to surprise him and catch him after work so we could go home together. I wanted to laugh and talk with him for the first time in a while. Just as the young people from the company were going to a cafe, I took advantage of the opportunity to join them until the bar closed at 12 o'clock, and then I headed to my husband's bar. When I was waiting a little away, my husband came out after about 30 minutes. As I was trying to figure out the timing to call out to him while feeling nervous, a woman came out chasing after him. "Jackson, wait. Let's go home together." She was clearly younger and cuter than me. When they left the street, they linked arms without worrying about their surroundings and kissed on the street. While following them, I felt a different heart-pounding sensation than before. I was so nervous that I felt like I was going to throw up. I held up my phone to leave evidence, but my hands were shaking uncontrollably. I also captured the two of them entering the hotel on camera, but it was too far away and the blurriness was insufficient to be used as evidence. I was angry and shocked, and I couldn't sleep that night, but I couldn't bring myself to ask my husband about it the next morning. "Hey, I'm going on a trip to Hawaii with the people from work." "When? How much does it cost?" "It's okay. We've all been saving up for Hawaii. We're leaving on Monday, 2 weeks from now." I thought he was definitely going with that woman. So I wanted to use a detective agency to get clear evidence. It took less than a week for the results to come out. This was because my husband and the woman always went home together after work and met each other twice a week during the day. As expected of a professional job, they had captured the decisive photographic evidence that I couldn't get. Even so, I wondered what I wanted to do with that evidence. Do I want a divorce? Do I want my husband to come back to me? I don't even know myself, but since then, I've been going near the bar every night after my husband finishes work. And I was taking pictures while following the two of them around. Naturally, I was sleep deprived and lost my appetite because I went to work every day. As days went by, my colleagues started to notice that I looked pale and had lost weight. Even so, I was wide awake at night. I realized that something was wrong with me, but I couldn't stop. I might have wanted evidence that it was all a dream. On the day before the trip, my husband seemed to have come straight home after work. That day, I returned home feeling tired from work and my physical condition worsened significantly. I collapsed on the sofa and fell asleep. "Hey, are you awake? You don't look well." "Yeah, my head and body feel heavy." "Come on, you should sleep in bed properly." My husband supported me as I headed to the bedroom. Since I started working at night, I hadn't slept with my husband and had been lying on the sofa almost sleepless for the past 2 weeks. "Hey, it's tough. Stay with me today." I unintentionally spoke my mind out of loneliness. However, my husband immediately replied, "No, I can't. I'm going to Hawaii tomorrow, and it would be a problem if you caught my illness. I'll be in the next room, so go ahead and sleep." After throwing me onto the bed, my husband quickly left the room. When I realized that he didn't even say anything to worry about me, tears started to flow. I wanted to touch my husband's kindness again. Since tears kept flowing no matter how much I wiped them away, I fell asleep as I was. The next morning, I realized that my physical condition had worsened since the night before. I contacted my workplace to let them know that I would be taking the day off and headed to the kitchen. I was so thirsty that I couldn't stand it. Come to think of it, I hadn't eaten dinner or drunk anything yesterday. I felt dizzy when I walked and thought I would rest on the sofa in the living room. Maybe that was a bad idea, because I felt sick as soon as I sat down and couldn't move. How are you feeling? Did you contact your workplace? When I woke up to my husband's voice, it was already past noon. My face was abnormally hot, unlike before. I probably had a fever. "Please take me to the hospital." While I was lying on the sofa in the living room, my husband was preparing to leave in a hurry. I had never seen the clothes he was wearing today. "It doesn't seem like a normal cold. Please take me to the hospital. I can't move on my own." My pleading voice didn't stop my husband. My husband is going on a trip to Hawaii with his cheating partner. "I can't. I won't make it in time if I take you there. I can't cancel the trip now either." He only glanced at me and didn't seem to care about my condition. Maybe he thought he would be in trouble if he caught his cold. He even threw the blanket he brought from the bedroom at me. "If you lie down for a while, you'll be able to go by yourself by evening. I'll be back in 5 days." Well, I don't have time, so I'm going. If this situation had still been going on somewhere, I might have hoped that my husband would cancel his trip and stay with me. The door of the entrance was closed, leaving me unable to move. It was also the moment when the red thread that had barely connected me and my husband was cut. In a hazy consciousness, I called my father. The only person other than my husband who has the key to this room is the father of the manager. "Dad, help me." I said only that, and it seemed that I lost consciousness. I had no memory of my father coming to my house or being transported in an emergency. I woke up in a hospital bed the next morning. I slept well and felt refreshed thanks to the treatment. When I noticed, my mobile phone had received a large number of calls from my husband. The phone started ringing about 2 hours after I was transported in an emergency. Oh, did Dad contact him? I was staring at the screen vaguely when my husband called me again. Suddy, I'm glad. I heard from your father that you were taken by ambulance. Are you okay? When I received the call, I was already just before the flight and couldn't go back. Oh, I see. Did you get the flight back? No. I thought I'd wait until I knew how Suddy was doing. Please, if you're okay, now, help me. We all came to Hawaii together. Can you tell your father something nice for me? Otherwise, we can't enjoy it. In the end, my husband seems to have continued his trip with that woman even in this situation. Now, where should I start? At that moment, when the door closed, I decided to erase all traces of my marriage with my husband. I smiled and kindly spoke to the asshole who was panicking on the other end of the phone. Okay. I'll make sure to talk to my father. Enjoy your trip to Hawaii. I said that, and I could tell that my husband breathed a sigh of relief on the other end of the phone. During these 5 days when my husband was off guard, I felt a surge of energy from the bottom of my heart, thinking that I would finish everything. Due to extreme stress, lack of sleep and malnutrition, and dehydration due to lack of water, I needed to be hospitalized for 2 to 3 days. Considering that I had a high fever at that time, I think I really wanted my husband to cancel his trip to Hawaii. Thanks to that, I was completely disappointed with my husband and made up my mind to divorce him. I told my parents who accompanied me everything and told them that I had decided to divorce my husband. If you've decided, I'll do my best to help. Leave that to me because I know someone over there. My parents were furious at my husband's infidelity, but at this point, I was already excited about the idea of playing a prank on my husband. 5 days later, my husband called me while I was recuperating at my parents' house. Suddy, I just returned home, but I saw a ton of missed calls from my dad and mom on my phone. They're really angry. Did your dad say something to my dad? Please, Suddy, help me. Who is this? What? What are you talking about? Anyway, I'm in a hurry to get home, so can you tell your dad something for me? That's all he said before hanging up. I could tell that he was in a huge rush. Of course he was. He left his sick wife behind, was transported in an emergency, and ignored my father's call to come back immediately. If my parents contacted his father, he must have realized that something was wrong. I decided to wait for the next call in a relaxed manner. Hello, Suddy, what's going on? I can't get into the house. The key doesn't work. Who is this? You've been calling me Suddy, but who are you? What are you talking about? You're my wife, Suddy. Why can't I get into the house? Just open it quickly. I could tell that my husband was panicking, so I couldn't help but laugh. I'll say it again. Who is this? I divorced the cheating husband who left his sick wife behind and went on a trip. I canceled the lease on the apartment, too. What? Cheating? No, what do you mean by divorce? So, you gave me a signed divorce paper before we got married. You said that if you ever cheated, I could submit it without mercy. Remember? Oh. We had made a pledge before we got married. We disagreed on what would happen if one of us cheated. My husband had been worried about it ever since. So after we got married, he said, to prove my love, and brought me a signed divorce paper. That's how much we loved each other back then. So I decided to follow my opinion that I wrote in the pledge and have him follow it. That's a lie. We should have talked about this properly. And what do you mean by cheating? I told you I was going on a trip with the people from work. Yeah. You went on a 2-person trip with Genesis from work, right? Wait a minute, I'll be there soon. I headed to our former apartment with my father. My husband was sitting in front of the door with a large suitcase. Welcome home. Did you have fun on your trip to Hawaii with Genesis? Let's go inside for now. Welcome back. It looks like you had a lot of fun on your trip. My husband bowed his head slightly in response to my father's words and entered the room through the door I opened. As soon as he entered the room, he raised his voice again. Hey, what the hell? Everything's gone. What happened to my stuff? Over the past few days, I had asked my father to move my husband's belongings out. Since he had moved into my room originally, we had disposed of his furniture and appliances when we got married, but he had a lot of luggage because there was a bed. I canceled the lease on the apartment and decided to have my parents keep my belongings for the time being. I told your parents that I would send your belongings, but they refused to accept them. They said they didn't want to accept someone who would cheat. So your belongings are currently in the trunk room of a moving company. Be careful not to incur additional charges if you don't find a new place to move to soon. What? Wait a minute. Stop joking around. I shouldn't have left you when you were sick, but I didn't cheat. I just didn't come back because you looked fine. Why are you doing this on your own? I couldn't believe he was still getting angry at me even now. I took out a bundle of photos from my bag and threw them at my husband. They were from the private detective agency and a large number of blurry photos I had taken. A large number of photos of the two of them were scattered around my husband. Shut up, you bastard. The evidence is already out. Do you know how I felt when I took these photos? I couldn't sleep or eat, but I wanted to believe. You betrayed me. That's all. I was screaming with a trembling voice, overflowing with emotions that made my stomach boil. Looking at the scattered photos and my condition, my husband seemed to have become more defiant. Were you following me? What the hell? I couldn't get a job, failed exams, and was irritated every day. I just went outside to find some peace. Don't make a fuss. What? So is it okay to cheat if you're irritated? I have pride too. I'm a husband, so it's embarrassing if I don't earn more than my wife. So I sought comfort from Genesis, a high school graduate and part-time worker. She's stupid, so she always praises me. It's your fault for not being kind. I couldn't help but sigh. My father seemed to feel the same way. I haven't said anything to Jackson until now, have I? Isn't that kindness? But I can't live with just my income anymore. We've been doing fine with just $50 a month. What's the problem? And you have savings, right? Don't complain. I was completely exhausted. Was this guy really this stupid? You know, have you ever thought about why we were able to live on $500 a month? It's because my father didn't accept rent. Savings are already empty. My husband looked surprised. Did he think I was a high-class person? Anyway, the divorce is already final. I'll hire a lawyer and sue for damages. Of course, I'll do it for Genesis too. And this is the contact information for the moving company. You can't take anything out of the trunk room, so you'd better decide on a new place to move to soon. Hey, are you serious? Are you going to abandon me? The moving and trunk room fees are paid later, so you'll have to pay for them yourself. My husband finally seemed to understand his situation and began to panic. He must have thought that he could continue this life since he hadn't found a job for 2 years. According to the private detective agency, he wasn't taking any qualification courses anymore, his part-time job salary was better than he told me, and he had Genesis, who lived with her parents, come to our house during the day. That's why I gave him the bed. Suddy, I'm sorry. I've been relying on you all this time. I'll change my mind and find a job right away. So please, let's start over. I only love you. It doesn't resonate with my heart anymore even if he says that now. It's too suspicious and I can't help but laugh. Everything ended there when Jackson left the room with my high fever. Oh, no. How am I supposed to live from now on? Please, Suddy. Help me. My father picked up Jackson's suitcase and carried it outside the door. Suddy respected Jackson's pride the most, didn't she? You really got the wrong idea about what you should cherish. After my father pushed him towards the entrance, Jackson took a few steps forward and fell to his knees, crying. Only Jackson's cries echoed in the empty room. My father hugged Jackson's sides and dragged him outside, locking the door in silence. My father and I left the apartment, leaving Jackson crying in front of the room. I claimed compensation for damages and living expenses through a lawyer for my ex-husband. After the divorce, he was not allowed to return to his parents' house and seems to have moved to a cheap apartment. In the end, it seems that he incurred debt with moving expenses. It seems that my ex-husband finally found a job after this situation, but his salary is low and he cannot quit his job at the bar to repay the damages. I hope he will abandon his strange pride and work hard in the future. I received several emails asking for reconciliation, but my heart did not waver at all, so I blocked him with a refreshing feeling. Genesis, his affair partner, was a 24-year-old part-time worker. Of course, I also asked her for compensation. Since I sent a registered letter to her parents' house, it became known to her family and she was kicked out of the house. Now, they seem to be living together in my ex-husband's apartment, but the lives of the two debtors seem to be difficult. I have no relationship with them anymore, so I hope they can live a modest but happy life. Well, in the last email I received from my ex-husband after the divorce, he wrote that he was still fighting with Genesis, so it might be useless to wish for it. I plan to take it easy at my parents' house for a while and think about the future. If possible, I hope to meet a trustworthy partner next time and reassure my parents.
What was bothering him? I wonder. Well, things don't always go well in life, but if he kept failing qualifications, I think he could have changed his perspective a little and tried to get another qualification without being stubborn. How was this story? Please subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.